I'm driving for work and want to do some reflection. I was just kind of thinking about like the steps of healing. I've been starting to think more and more about my own healing process and I thought about how healing has several steps. And I kind of thought about like if healing had steps, what would they be? And I'm just going to go through them quickly and then I'm going to kind of go into more depth. Step one. See your reality of today. Step two, start to search for and understand your true self. Step three, imagine and create your future you as your true self. Step four, recognize the difference between your current self and the future self. Step five, recognizing and listing the key differences stopping you from being your true self right now. Step six, going through the whys for each of your key issues that are holding you back. Step seven, recognizing and addressing the core of the why. Step eight, healing the core wounds through healing methods. Step nine, forgiveness and releasing of the traumas. And step 10, embracing the new true self. So I want to start back at the top again with step one is see your reality of today. So what that means is taking and understanding yourself currently how you are. So 90% of our life is actually like automatic auto programming that we have through the subconscious that we are not even aware of. So we look completely different to others than we do to ourselves. So the first key step is finding out like who you actually are right now. Like what do you actually look like to other people? How are you actually interacting in this world? Um, what are the things that you're doing? What does your life actually look like? Like from the like true reality of it. And that's gonna take some a lot of like probably like journaling and reflecting. I think this is like a lot of coaching of using other people as mirrors. Like that whole mirror effect, I think is massive in this stage of just like as you judge, as you dissect people, like put that back onto you and judge and dissect yourself to find like how and where you are correlating with this person that you are judging. So, for example, you could judge someone because they are rude. And so you're like, oh, wow, they're a jerk. Well, then the key is to anytime you recognize you're calling someone a jerk and you're judging them, to turn that back onto you and see where you have been a jerk. Um, the things that trigger you the most are the things that are actually your biggest internal struggles. So usually things that are super triggering to you, it's because that's actually correlated with one of your shadows. And I think shadow work is a big part of the healing process. And so starting to incorporate some of that shadow work of just recognition. What are your shadows? Um, what is triggering you, you know, and like looking at that and finding out like the reality is like that person being a jerk is triggering you because um you secretly have these thoughts about people or you have been a jerk or whatever. So the first step is just recognizing the reality of right now. That's a huge one for people. That's a very beginning step. And a lot of people are just always in autopilot and never actually turn the autopilot off and and like look at themselves. So like that's the first step is just recognition of the reality of who you currently and your behaviors and whatnot. So step two, start to search for and understand your true self. So as you begin to see who you are now, um, then you can kind of begin to search for and kind of understand who you truly are. So you're who you are now, and the first step is like your autopilot, your auto programming. That's who you are to this world, right? To other people. But once you recognize who you are on the outside to other people, how you're operating in this world, then you can start to look for, but who are you truly, actually, underneath all of the auto programming? Who is in the core of this being that has an autopilot programming that's running? So, like, starting to realize like who you who you actually are, and that can start going back into like childhood. That takes a lot of journaling. It takes a lot of self-reflection of like what genuinely makes you happy. What do you actually love to do? What moves you? What fills you? What inspires you? Who are your people you look up to the most? What do you feel drawn to? Um, and like a lot of different self-discovery tools are good at this stage. So like astrology, numerology, um, there's different kinds of tests for uh enograms or whatever they're called. There's like a whole bunch of like personality testing. I know like the Carl Jung has his own personality testing. Like all these kind of things are super fantastic tools because it's a way to kind of they filter out a little bit of the autopilot um to help you kind of see yourself. And so this is like a lot of self-exploration. So yeah, what do you like? What do you don't like? What is that true personality behind you? A lot of looking back to your childhood. What did you love when you were a child? What were you drawn to? What did you want to be when you grow up? All that kind of stuff is just understanding like the true you behind this auto programming. And then step three is imagine and create your future you as your true self. So after you realize, okay, so I have this auto programming and this is like the reality of how I'm living. The next step, and then the next step after that would be, okay, but then this is the true me. And then the next one would be, all right, so this is my autopilot me. This is how I'm currently living in this world today. This is who I really am. And then what is your future going to look like once you let go of those autopilots and like start actually living who you really are? So like starting to embrace your genuineness, like what will that look like? Like if you no longer are doing things because you're supposed to, because you should, because it's safe, um, what would that look like? If money wasn't an object, what would your life look like? If, you'd be guaranteed successful in any career path you choose, what would it be? And just like imagining what that would look like, if there's zero restrictions or anything, where would you live? If your family or your current situation, your finances wasn't like a determining factor, what would you be doing with your time? Where would you be living? What would you look like? Um, just simple things of like, what would your home look like? What would your clothes look like? What are your hobbies? Yeah, what would you do for a career? All these like, would you have kids? Would you not have kids? Would you have a relationship, not a relationship? Like just like questions like that. Like, what would that future you look like if you lived yourself completely free of any sort of restriction? No one can put you in a box. No one can tell you how you should. You just live purely out of your own genuine self. What would that look like? And I'm starting to create and imagine that future and kind of playing with that future and of yourself. And then step four is recognizing the differences between your current self and your future self. So step four is really getting into, okay, what's stopping me from being that better future self of mine? So, like, as you're beginning to create and imagine that, you think, okay, well, how come I'm not living that? And then you kind of start going through like the reasons why, like listing off, like, oh, I can't afford that financially. I'm staying, I have this different job. Um, like it just, I don't have enough physical energy. I have this chronic condition. Whatever it is, like there's tons of reasons why you're not living your full potential, true self. So just starting to go through and dissecting the differences and what is the underlying things that are stopping you from achieving that. And the reasons why you're currently living a different life than that one you imagine. And then step five is okay, wait. Did we just go through that one? Oh, okay, no. Step five, recognizing and listing the key differences stopping you from being your true self right now. Um, okay, so I don't do this one. Hold on. Recognizing. Okay, so the first part is just recognizing them. Step four is recognizing the differences between your current self and your future self, and then recognizing and listing the key differences from stopping you from being your true self right now. So they kind of go hand in hand. Basically, it's just another step of diving into it. So, like the first step in part four is just like observing and seeing there's differences, like um, recognizing how your current life is different than your future self. And then the step five is really when you're just like literally listing them out and really diving into it and kind of dissecting the differences between them. And then you go into step six, going through the whys for each of your key issues that are holding you back. So this is kind of the deep work, shadow work, deep work. I don't know. There's a lot of stuff in this. Shadow work will be incorporated in here, but also just like this is just a lot of just self reflection. This is something I kind of came up with myself that I helped me a lot. Um, is just like the whys to me are you ask yourself why? You get to the very core reasoning for something. So okay, this I'll give you an example. It could be like one thing I could have had listed on step five. What's stopping me from living my current life is like I picture myself being like really fit and healthy and active in my future self, my true self, and then um currently the key difference is like I am overweight, I don't have energy, I'm not active. Okay, so then what step six is about is dissecting why are you overweight? Why are you out of shape, unhealthy? And this is where that deep work comes into. And honestly, this is something like I said, I kind of just started doing naturally on my own. And I just found that help. So how I kind of came up with this is actually like I didn't know what I was feeling one day. I just felt kind of off and I just felt kind of upset about something. I couldn't really figure it out. And this is when I was like trying to like do a lot of body work, which body work is very important to this whole process. Before you can really start diving into this kind of stuff, you really need to learn how to reattach to your body, um, start to like let go of that disassociation, start feeling your intuition again, start like acknowledging yourself again, reconnecting with yourself, um, and feeling how things feel. Just like when you have traumas, you just become so disconnected from yourself that you really don't even know where to begin. You can't even begin to. address these things because you're just like so disconnected. And so like really like you have to like ground yourself and reconnect. And that's like a process that you're gonna go through this experience. Through the whole experience is like a lot of like grounding work and like working with your nervous system and regulating your nervous system again and getting them out of that fight or flight response because like you can't even begin to process when you're in fight or flight. So that's really going to be in the beginning stages of even just prepping for trauma work because like you need to be able to reattach to your body and get out of that fight or flight response before you can even really begin to dissect yourself and feel yourself. So yeah, so what you're gonna do is, and like I said, this is kind of how I came up with it, was one day I was kind of reconnecting with my body and I felt kind of something off and I'm like, okay, what is this? Why do I feel upset? And I kind of just sat with it and I kind of felt it out and I'm like, okay, like I just started asking myself, why? Like, why do I have this feeling in my stomach right now? And something had come up like, oh, I feel a bit guilty. Well, why do you feel guilty? Well, because I feel like I'm a bad mom. Why do you feel like a bad mom? You know, and it would like keep going through, like, and I'd be like, why? Until I got to the core issue of what was actually triggering it. And that ended up being something from my childhood and one of my traumas was actually triggering me to feel the way I do today. And I had no idea. Like until I went through why, and I got to the very core of the issue. Like the issue isn't like I feel like a bad mom because I yelled at my kids. Okay, like why did you yell at your kids? You know? Because you're jumping all over me and constantly touching me, and I don't want to be touched right now. And then it's like, well, why? And basically, by the time I got to the end of it, I just screamed out because I don't want to be touched without my permission. And it was instantly like this wow moment of like that came from like my sexual abuse. And like I had no idea that from my sexual abuse that I buried is affecting me in my everyday life, you know. Traumas, it's not about like, oh, you feel sad about something. It's like it comes out in funny ways. You get triggered in ways you didn't realize. And so until you get going through this process, you have no idea that your struggles today can be correlating due to something that happened to you years ago. And that you can be suffering from PTSD or different things, and you had no idea. You didn't even know that that's a thing, and you had no idea that what you're going through is not just because you're a crappy mom. You know, like you getting instantly triggered and yelling or lashing out at something, like that triggering part, it's for a reason. And so the whys are helping you get to the core of those reasons. Um, and it takes a lot of time and a lot of work. And this is like a lot of that deep work that you're going to be sitting with yourself for a while because it's not just one thing. There's several things that you're going to have to go through again and again. So this process is really just a repetitive process. It's going to be a lot of self-reflection, a lot of journaling, a lot of like getting in touch with yourself again, in the sense of like, yeah, like your how you're feeling in your body, um, to be able to really like understand it and how it's affecting you today. So let's see. So after you're going through the whys and you're starting to get to the cores, that's going to be step 7 is like recognizing and addressing the core of the why. Okay. So you're gonna go why, okay, and then say like I used in my example, why do I feel upset? Because I feel like a bad mom. That recognizing in step 7, recognizing and addressing the core of the why would be realizing, okay, the why is because I was sexually assaulted and I don't want to be touched without my permission. So my kids, you know, jumping all over me, mom, 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 clinging to me, touching me all the time. It triggered me in a way that it unknowingly made me flash back to that without me even realizing. It's like that's why you get that sudden like, just get away from me. It's like this outburst. You can't help. You just freak out because it's just like it triggered something super painful, and that's like your response. And so like your body doesn't realize, okay, you're not in this unsafe situation. Your body's just realizing it's overstimulated and this everyone's touching you and it feels uncomfortable and it doesn't comprehend like, oh, these are your kids. It just responds to your how you respond prior to the past. Like you know that when you feel um overwhelmed and like you're being touched and stuff like that is something very traumatic for you. So your body's going to respond in a way to protect you. So that automatic response, that protection is like, get away from me. And that feeling of like running away. So it's like that the flight and the fight, flight, or freeze response is like if you just like want to up and just run away from your kids because they're touching you and you can't handle it anymore. That would be a flight response. And so that's your body protecting you by triggering that flight response to say, hey, get up and run. Okay. So recognizing where those core wounds have come from is so, so important. And then you're gonna go into step 8 of healing the core wounds through healing method. So as you're starting to realize, okay, where did these issues really come from? Okay, where are these core wounds from? Um, then you can really start to work with some more deep trauma healing. So, like, there's certain things you can do to help trauma. So, like, trauma isn't just a memory, trauma is a physical sensation, energy, memory, whatever you want to call it, imprinted in our body. Like, we carry that energy and we hold that and we store it. And then also, it affects us in our whole body through like I talked about with PTSD and everything else. We have this fight, flight, freeze response, these automatic triggers. And so it does all kinds of stuff to our body. So until we actually feel it and we actually release it from our bodies itself, like we will continually do these repetitive patterns. Um, because their bodies are trying to protect us. So you having these outbursts, fight, flight, freeze response, whatever they are, these instant things, like it's not because you're a bad person. It's actually because you have a very good nervous system who's working very, very, very hard to protect you and keep you safe. But your nervous system doesn't know that you are safe. Your nervous system can't comprehend, hey, I'm at home with my kids and I'm actually safe right now. I don't need to respond this way. Your nervous system just responds to what could be a threat. So it can't comprehend that. So this comes to play where there's a lot of deep healing and re-regulation that needs to come so that you can release all this stuff so that your body can actually be safe again. So your body can actually know. It's not a mentalness of knowing I'm safe. If you just think, okay, yeah, I'm safe, those things are still gonna come up and trigger you. Like you can comprehend, yeah, I'm not in that abusive relationship anymore. I'm not a vulnerable child in that sexual abuse situation anymore. Like, yes, I can mentally comprehend that. I obviously am aware that I'm no longer in that situation. However, until you release it from your body and until you feel that, your body will think you are still there. And so that's where the deep trauma work comes in. So like some things that can help with that are like hypnotherapy, EMDR, having a really good trauma therapist to help you walk through these healing processes. Um, Different things you can do with your body, nervous system regulation, somatic exercises, somatic breath work, yoga, meditation. all of these things that can help you. There's tons and tons of healing methods, um, as well as physical healing methods of like your nutrition and um exercise and like different things that are also going to help our bodies in like this healing process. It's like it's a very holistic approach. You want to heal your body, um, both energetically, mentally, emotionally, physically, like all of it, spiritually. All of that is a process. And there's many, many, many layers to it. And that is why, and there's like many options, and that is why like everyone's healing experience is going to be completely unique because each process, everyone handles things differently, everyone releases things differently, everyone needs different methods, everyone has better ways of healing than others. So, where one person like yoga and meditation and breath work might work really well, another person like Reiki and crystals and um like I don't know, different things will work really well. Um, and you can even get into like very sciencey stuff as well. Some people can get really into like heart heart mind coherency, epigenetic, this like different things, so yeah, tons and tons of stuff there. You can go on forever about that stuff, but the whole point is you are healing the actual core of the trauma itself in your body. Okay. So let's go back to my list here. So, after you are healing those core wounds, healing those core wounds, the next step would be forgiveness and releasing of the traumas. So, as you are coming through this whole process, okay, you went through all of it. You went through the recognition of who you are today. You went through realizing who you truly are. You went through the whys and how you got to where you are today and why you're not at where you want to be. You got through like where that actually stemmed from, the core roots, and you're starting to feel those roots themselves. And then that closingness, that full cycle, that full circle coming back is releasing that that trauma, that wound from you. So that is like the the end stages of the trauma healing process. Like as you heal it, you let go. You're letting go of being a victim to that. You're letting go of what that has over you. You're letting go of that pain that that once caused you. As you're healing, you can finally release, both mentally and physically. Like you're releasing it from your body, and you're also mentally releasing that hold, like letting go of what that had over you, that victimness, that fear, that doubt, whatever it had. And you're able to release that. And with that release, you are forgiving. As you're going through this process, you realize that that pain came from someone else that was in a lot of pain. So as you go through your own trauma work, you recognize how much pain you are in and how much that affected your life and how it made you become a person you weren't actually wasn't your true self. So it made you become this um person on autopilot that wasn't truly you, right? And you're living a way that's not really you. And so as you're going through this whole process, you're recognizing that that person who did that to you in the first place is in the same situation. They were in a significant amount of pain. They have their own traumas, and who they are when they hurt you wasn't who they truly were, you know? And so it's just Forgiveness doesn't mean that it's okay what they did to you. Forgiveness is just that recognition of that they were also in a lot of pain and they were acting out in survival mode. They were acting out in that automatic response that yeah. And so just recognizing that um is like this forgiveness piece of just seeing that, you know, that person that did that to you, that was out of pain, and that's not who they truly are. Now, will that does that mean they'll ever change? Maybe, maybe not. Some people will live with this trauma forever and they'll never heal and they'll just it'll continue to grow and become worse, you know. So for us, so forgiveness doesn't mean you have to forgive for what they did to you, but it's just that recognition of um what it was, that this was out of pain, this was the trauma response, and that you don't have to hold on to that anymore and you can let go and you can forgive. And then also um yes, releasing it from your body. Like and and also a big part of the forgiveness is not forgiving who hurt you, it's also forgiving yourself. So a lot of traumas and things you're going to go through actually come from you, which is something you're going to learn and it's in shadow work as well. And then just through the process is when you recognize that you were in this trauma response, you were this autopilot, you recognize and realize like that you actually hurt people too. Um, and so a lot of that is going to be processing through that and forgiving yourself. And then forgiving yourself in so many different ways. You know, like I had to forgive myself. For example, in my sexual abuse, I had to start forgiving myself for allowing myself to be in that situation, for not standing up for myself, for not fighting back, for not, you know, all these things. Um, and so there's a lot of self forgiveness that comes. And so releasing that pain and guilt and shame and all that that comes from feeling that way about yourself. And so, yeah, so that's also a forgiveness. It's forgiveness of yourself as well. And then also part of that forgiveness and release is also just a recognition of while all of this was excruciatingly painful, and not that you want to go through that, but just a recognition of all of that led you to where you are today. And just realizing that you wouldn't be who you are today and you wouldn't become this amazing person you're becoming if you haven't experienced all of that pain and suffering. So that's another part of the forgiveness is that acceptance of like, while all that was horrible, I don't wish that on anyone. I also wouldn't really want to change it because it made me who I am today. And I shouldn't say you shouldn't want to change it. If you don't feel that way, that's okay. But I felt like personally in my own experience, the more I healed and the more I released and the more I was forgiving, the more I was letting go, the more I just genuinely, I don't know what the right words are, but just like that I wouldn't change it because it made me become who I am today. I wouldn't be able to do this. I wouldn't be able to help other people. I wouldn't have learned and grown and done all this stuff if I wouldn't have had gone through that pain. And so while that pain is hard and you don't want anyone to go through it, it also grew you into this amazing, strong, loving, empathetic, caring person that's going to help change this world. And so yes, that is also part of that healing and forgiveness and releasing. And then the last one is embracing your new true self in step 10. Um, so after that's all said and done, you made the full cycle through. You are letting go of all those traumas. They are healing. And then the next step is just living your new life. So I like to say new life because it's new to you now, but truly it's just your true life, your true self. Um, it's who you were all along. You just lost the path. You just fell off for a little bit. Um, so I say new because it feels new, but really it is just who you are. You're just living the life you were meant to live. For so long, you were living this life out of trauma, fear, and whatever else you were going through. You were living this life in autopilot mode, this life of unconsciousness, unawareness, self-destruction. And now, because you healed that, all that pain that brought you there, now you can live the life you were born to live. You can now do the things you were born to do, and you can embrace this life. You can embrace your true self, and you're starting to see that future you that you pictured in the beginning is actually becoming a reality because you went through all of that, and that allowed you to free up all of the pain, all of the trauma, all the separation that was separating you from who you really are. And so that's it. You just the final stage is embracing who you truly are now. Um, and with that, I will say it is a process. Um, you go back and forward because the reality is it's not like one single thing you have to fix and heal. It's many layers, and you're usually, doing a few layers at a time. And it's a process. It's a lifelong journey. And like even as you're feeling and growing, like say you get through all this childhood trauma stuff, you're always going to have more struggles, one of your family members might fall sick. You could fall ill. Death in the families, loss of a job, like all of these things that happen continuously throughout everyone's life, that's going to affect you. So it's not like you go through this process a couple like on one or two things and all of a sudden like you're like, aha, I'm this shiny new person and everything's fantastic. My life is perfect and everything's perfect. It's like, yeah, no, you are beginning to live the life you were meant to live, but you still have challenges. And so throughout the process of life, you're re-going through this again and again and again. Um, but I do feel like it does get easier. I feel like the first time is very hard. The first time you start diving into any of this stuff, it's excruciating. I really had a lot of deep pain. To feel all that was very, very difficult, very painful. Um, it's not for the faint of heart, but I feel like it gets a little bit easier each time. Um, and you're just constantly going. It's a journey. It never ends until the day you die. It's a journey. But the whole point isn't to like end with perfection life, like goal, right? It's like the whole point is the journey. The whole point is growing, is continuing to grow, continuing to learn, continuing to share, continuing to love, to fall and get back up again. When every time you fall and you get back up, you become stronger. Um, and yes, so it is a goal. But yeah, I do feel like it does get better. It does get a little easier. The more you learn, the more you understand, the more you go through things. I feel like it's also just a faster, easier process too, because you've been there, you've done that, you learned how to release, you know what trauma healing methods worked for you. Um, you know all these things. You know who yourself, you know who your true self is. You can tap into your body, you can connect with your body, you can start to tell what you need and why, and when, and how to do it. And so yeah, but it is a lifelong journey. So, but yes, embrace the new you, enjoy the new you. Um, all of this hard work is so worth it, I promise. I have only just had a tiny, teeny tiny piece off of I broke a tiny piece off of what feels like a mountain, right? Like I feel like I have so much to go. I have so much yet I have to go through and so much I'm learning. And I've only had a teeny tiny taste of it. And that teeny tiny taste of it is amazing. Like I said, it is so hard. It is excruciating and it is painful and it is not for the faint of heart. But when you do go through this, it is so worth it. It is worth everything. To be able to free yourself up from this, to be able to learn and grow, to be able to be the person you're meant to be. There's no words to describe it. So, all right, that's all I have. I just wanted to go through my steps and thoughts and process of trauma healing.